I saw a crazy statistic the other day, and I gotta share it with you guys. The average age a boy sees porn for the first time is 12. The first time I saw it, I was 7 turning 8. Most of you watching this was probably somewhere in between, maybe even younger. But the point isn't the number. The point is that by the time we were old enough to know what we were looking at, we'd already been looking at it, which is absolutely wild to me. It's Master Clee back here with another video, and I appreciate every single one of y'all for being here. I've talked with a lot of people on this topic in particular, and the same thing kept coming up. Typically, people that I speak with about porn, they say the same things. They're like, yo, I knew porn wasn't good for me. I know it's not good for me, but I didn't know that it was doing all of that. I didn't know it was messing with me in all of these areas of my life. And I'll give you guys an example. For instance, smoking. Most people know that smoking is bad, but just because you know that it's bad, it doesn't stop most people, doesn't stop most smokers. And the ones that do end up quitting, most of them quit because at some point they saw or they felt what it was doing to them, right? For example, they become shortness of breath when taking a walk. They notice a change in their voice deepening. They might have seen a lung scan and they saw their lungs black as hell. They might have seen those commercials where somebody has a hole in their chest and they gotta press a button just in order to speak. Or maybe they saw somebody they love die from smoking. So essentially knowing turned into seeing, and then seeing turned into action, which eventually led them to quitting. Why is that important? Because porn works the same way. You know it's not good, that's not new news, but you've probably never sat with what it's doing to you while you're doing it. And so that's what this video is. I'm not here to tell you that porn is bad. You probably already know that. And if you don't know that, you will know that at the end of this video. Really why I'm here is I'm here to walk you through what's actually happening to your body, what's actually happening to your mind, what's actually happening to your spirit, to your life, to your purpose, and all the above while engaging in this vice. Some of this is science, right? Some of this is backed by science. Some of this is backed by scripture. Some of this is just experience and stuff that I've lived through, but didn't have the language for until later on in life, right? Now that I'm mature, I have language for it. I can actually speak to it because I've overcome it. Now, I want to preface this by saying I am not a doctor, okay? I'm not a pastor. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a neuroscientist. I'm not a reverend. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist, whatever. I'm none of those things. I'm just a nigga with an attitude who carried this vice for a long, long time. I was finally able to put it down, and then I spent the years after I put it down trying to understand why I'd been carrying it for so damn long. Okay, let's start here. There's a verse actually that I want you guys to read, and I want to read it with you guys. 1 Corinthians 6:18. Paul said something there that I didn't understand for years, and actually, I want to come back to that, okay? What I want to start with is I want to start with the brain and what this thing actually does to your cognitive. Okay, so we're actually going to come back to this verse. We'll come back to it in a minute. I'm going to put it there for now, okay? So, to your brain. I gotta get a new black marker, whatever. So, quick thing about how this works, because if you understand this part, the rest is chicken. Your brain runs on a chemical called dopamine. Most of y'all know what dopamine is, or I hope so. Most people think dopamine is the pleasure chemical. It's not exactly. What it is it's the wanting chemical, right? It's the motivation chemical. It's the insatiable desire chemical. It's the thing that makes you reach for the cookie before you eat it. Okay, so it fires before the reward, not during it. Okay, it's why every time I take a bite of a piece of cake, and right as soon as my mouth touches it, I'm like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? Because it felt so good to taste, right? But it wasn't really just the sugar, it was really the dopamine that was being released. Now, that's an important distinction, please remember that. Essentially, this means that dopamine isn't really about feeling good. What it's about is it's more so about feeling like you need to do something in order to feel good. Once you know that, you start seeing it show up everywhere, right? You'll see it while you're scrolling on Instagram, you'll get a dopamine hit. You'll see it every time you eat something sweet, just like I did, you'll get a dopamine hit. Every time you get a notification, you'll get a dopamine hit. And so essentially we're all walking around in dopamine debt and we really don't even know it, right? So that's dopamine. Why is that important? How does this relate to porn? Porn is different, okay? And I want to explain to you why, because this is the part that I really think is going to click for you. There is a Stanford psychiatrist named Anna Lemke, and she wrote this book called Dopamine Nation a while back. And she's got this idea that I keep coming back to. She says your brain has a balance. It has pleasure on one side, pain on the other side. And whenever the balance is even, that's the baseline, right? That's your brain functioning properly. That's your normal. So let me give you a visual. Pleasure on this side, pain on this side, right? Let's just imagine that this is a teeter-totter or a seesaw. Okay, so that's the foundation. That's your brain functioning properly in its normal state, right? So let's say you decide to engage in pornography. What happens is you get a big pleasure hit. You get a huge pleasure hit. The balance starts to tip that way, okay? Let me write that. Give me just a second, because I want to make sure that you guys get this. So let's do this. Pleasure, boom, and then we'll come here. Seesaw still right here, but now the pain is down here, okay? So hopefully you guys can see that all right. And so the balance tips that way. That's the moment, right? That's the high, that's the rush, that's the feeling that we keep coming back for. And so after you get this pleasure hit, again, the brain wants balance. What do you think happens? Well, now there's pressure on the pain, and the pain has to recompensate itself. It has to rebalance itself by tipping toward pain, right? And so that other side of tipping, that's the come down, right? That's the down, that's the shame. That's the wanting to take a shower and just get it off of you. That's the not wanting to look at yourself in the mirror, right? That's the brain chemistry seesaw. It just wants to get back to this normal level. Now, here's the part that most people miss. If you continue to do this, you get the same hit, the same come down, the same hit, the same come down. The balance starts to get stuck. So the pleasure side wears down eventually, but the pain side gets heavier and heavier. And yet, even though you're still hitting the same stimulus, you're almost getting nothing on the pleasure side. But understand, the pain side, the come down, is still mad heavy, and it's still cashing in that check. That's what most people mean when they say tolerance, right? So now you've built a tolerance that your pleasure doesn't really feel like pleasure anymore, but yet you still have to pay with the pain. Why is porn worse than any other dopamine hits? Here's a few reasons. One of them we just talked about, that pleasure. Like, the more that you engage in this, the less pleasure you start to feel from it, but yet that come down is just as big, if not heavier, than it is before. Okay, the first reason that the dopamine for pornography hits way more than any other activity is, number one, it's infinite. Now, what does that mean, it's infinite? Essentially, your brain was built to expect maybe one partner in a lifetime, maybe two if you were lucky. Now, this is the primal brain that we're talking about. Pornography gives you access to thousands of partners, thousands of mates in one session. So your brain essentially reads that as access to an unlimited mating opportunity, and it just starts dumping dopamine at you like you won the lottery. And that's one reason, right? There's an unlimited access of partners. These are virtual partners we're talking about. Wow. Now, number two, it's free. Hopefully, as long as you ain't subscribed to nobody's OnlyFans, right? But that's not even what I'm talking about when I say it's free. When I say it's free, I mean that it takes no effort, right? Sex, real sex, with a real partner, that takes work, that takes investment, that takes conversation, that takes vulnerability, that takes showing up for somebody. It takes sacrifice, it takes real effort, and it takes intentionality. You have to be intentional when you are trying to, get a partner and all of these things. Understand that porn skips all of that entirely, right? So you essentially get the chemical reward without any of the development, without any of the connection, without any of the risk. So your brain thinks that it's learned the cheat code, and it stops being interested in finding a real partner. It stops being interested in the harder and the slower thing. Understand that this is an example of instant gratification, okay? And then number three, It rewires. What does it rewire? It rewires your brain. This is the one that scared me when it clicked. Your brain physically rewires itself based on what you feed it. Neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. So whatever pathway you fire gets reinforced, and whatever pathway you don't fire weakens. So essentially, porn carves a freeway, and every time you watch it, that freeway gets wider and more lanes get added to it without you realizing the toll that you have to pay for those freeways. And so, what started as a little highway expanded to a multi-lane freeway. Neuroplasticity. Look it up if you don't believe me. I don't know shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm just somebody who overcame 5 vices, 4 of them cold turkey, but this was the one that I couldn't beat for the life of me. So when I tell you I was exposed to porn at 8, that's a fact. Understand that that's a 17-year freeway that my brain built, that my brain reinforced every single year and just kept adding lanes and lanes and lanes. And I tried using willpower to stop building against this freeway, right? But understand those freeways have been getting built since before I hit puberty. Same as a lot of you that's watching this right now. The last video I made, I told you guys that I was able to beat the other vices with willpower. Willpower couldn't beat this one. My freeways were way too wide. Okay, and that's the brain. That's just one piece. That's just one piece of what this thing does to you, what this vice, how this vice traps you. Okay, so remember that. That's just one piece. Okay, so we talked about the brain. Let's go to the body. All right, what it does to your body. Now, I gotta be careful here because this is the area where you'll find a lot of misinformation. You got people saying that, pornography reduces 80% of your testosterone. You beat your meat, you'll go blind. These are all things that you've heard of, right? I'm not really gonna get into those. I don't wanna talk about things that I truly can't prove. A lot of those things are nuanced. Now, what we do know about the body and what most men have failed to notice while engaging in this activity is that it affects your bodies in ways you don't realize, okay? One of the first ways that porn affects your body is how you sleep. It's how you sleep. What do I mean by that? A lot of men watch porn at night. They use it to wind down. They use it to escape the stress of the day. The problem is what porn does to your nervous system before you sleep is the opposite of what your body needs to actually sleep or recover. So essentially you're spiking your system right before you're supposed to be powering it down, right? So you sleep, but you don't rest. You wake up tired even when you got 8 hours. Does that sound familiar for anybody or just me? I remember for me, I would watch porn at night, and there would be nights where I would fall right asleep as soon as I'm done, right? But the problem with that was I didn't dream. It was black the whole night. I stayed in the same position all night. And when I woke up, I was even more tired than before I went to sleep. And then there's the where that doesn't happen, but I wake up and then in the middle of the day I have an energy crash, or I have brain fog, and I end up blaming it on my job, or I'll blame it on caffeine, or I'll blame it on me feeling stressed out. But I'll tell you this, when I quit pornography, my energy came back. Of course it did. It's life force. You can't just be giving your life force away like that. You know what I'm saying? All I had to do was figure out, what was draining me? What was different about this time period of my life? And it was that thing that I quit pornography. You know what I'm saying? I thought it was the late nights or the shame that I've been carrying around. But once I let it all go, it was gone, and the fog lifted as well, and I felt awake again. Okay, and then there's the sexual side. This is the one that nobody really wants to talk about, but I'm gonna talk about it because I'm vulnerable. Okay, there's this thing called PIDE. Now, what that stands for is porn induced ED, erectile dysfunction. Okay, young men, healthy on paper, no medical issues, can't perform with real partners. Doctors started seeing this about 20 years ago, around the same time that high-speed internet porn became universally available. Do y'all think this is a coincidence? Let me know in the comments. I say probably not. So what's happening with this is that the brain got trained on a specific type of stimulus, right? So now it seeks a certain type of stimulation, hyperstimulation for that matter. So when the brain gets in front of a real woman who can't compete with that, the body doesn't respond. If y'all look up erectile dysfunction, people say this shit is 100% mental, right? And that's because the brain isn't wired to respond to her. It's wired to respond to a screen. It's wired to respond to a partner, a fictional character, a virtual partner that really a real woman can't compete with. Now, it's a wild thing to sit with, that a man could love his wife, want his wife, desire his wife, but not be able to be present with her because of this thing, right? He's been training himself on pornography. So when it's time to perform, he can't. And I love what Tim Ross said. Tim Ross was like, yo, when I stopped engaging in pornography, I no longer outsource my well. My lady gets all my attention, and now I drink from my own well. Y'all have to understand the wiring problem that this has created. Most men don't understand what is going on, and so they end up with ED, right? They end up not being able to connect with the real woman anymore, okay? Chronic dopamine affects your motivation in general and not just sexually. Your ability to feel pleasure from normal things like food, like conversations, like getting outside and being in sunlight and exercise no longer are present. You don't get excited for those things. The clinical word for this is anhedonia. Right? Stuff that used to feel good and be fun doesn't feel good anymore because the bar has been completely shifted. You can no longer be stimulated by the little things because this shit is getting all of it. All right, real quick, if you're an elite performer who's been carrying porn or lust as your one weak spot in your life and you're ready to do the work, then link in the description. Okay, cohort 1 launches soon, and I really hope to see you there. Okay, so this is what it does to the body. Now, let's talk about what it does to the spirit. What it does to the spirit, okay? This is the section that took me the longest to understand, all right? For years, I thought this was just a discipline problem for me. I thought pornography was just me having to be more disciplined and let go of this lust that I had, right? Nothing bigger than just a minor bad habit, something that I had to just fix with better discipline and more willpower, whatever. Or maybe just a better app to block certain stuff that I probably shouldn't have been looking at. But the truth is, this shit was eating me inside and out, dog. It was eating me inside and out, okay? I wanna share a verse with you guys real quick. This is Romans 7:15. And just before I do some quick context, this is Paul, who wrote half of the New Testament. He's writing about himself struggling with sin. Listen to what he has to say. Listen to what he says. So he says, I do not understand my own actions, for I do not do what I want, but I do the very thing I hate. I have the desire to do what is right, but not the ability to carry it out. I do not do the good I want, but the evil I do not want is what I keep on doing. This is Paul. This is the Apostle Paul. 2,000 years ago, sitting in the same state of sin that we've been sitting in. He's writing a letter to the church, and what he's describing is the exact loop every man stuck in porn lives in. What I hate, I keep doing. This has been a problem since the existence. That's been a man problem since there were men on this earth, and we are not alone. Now, for me, the reason that verse hit so hard is because it tells me two things at once. One, I'm not uniquely broken, right? If the greatest evangelists in history struggle with sin and the same type of loop, then I should give some grace to myself. The second thing that it told me is that there's a way out of it, and Paul found it, and he wrote about this as well. And he wrote about this in 1 Corinthians 6:18. What did he say in that verse? He said, flee from sexual immorality. I'm sure you guys know the verse. I said it in my last video. I'll put it up on the screen so that you could read it. This is Paul. Again, he's writing to a city full of believers who were dealing with sexual sin everywhere they looked, which, does that sound familiar? Maybe in today's world, I don't know. Does that sound like, OnlyFans and just the access to the abundance of adult websites? Like, we live in a time where it is the easiest and most accessible to engage in this type of activity, right? So Paul tells them one word: flee. Sexual immorality, period. Flee from it. He doesn't say resist it. He doesn't say fight it. He doesn't say ignore it. He says flee. He says run. And he said that because, he understood. He understood something that most men don't. You can't out-discipline this thing. Sexual sin is a sin that you can't out-discipline. It's a sin that you can't out-motivate. It's a sin that you can't outwork. It's a sin you physically have to remove yourself from. So you have to flee. And that's why willpower doesn't work. That right there is why willpower doesn't work. Understand that willpower is the strategy of staying in the same room and fighting, right? Giving it your all. Understand that for this sin, the Bible tells us the strategy to break it, leave the damn room, okay? Now, here's the deeper layer. When you're carrying something hidden, and this is a hidden vice, right? That's what makes it different from the rest of the others. You stop being able to look up to God, right? And what do I mean by that? It becomes harder to face him because you feel like you're doing this alone and in the shadows, right? You stop yourself from being able to confront him and ask for forgiveness. You're afraid to face him. But understand that, like, you might have think that God moved away from you, but he never moved, right? And so you start hiding the same way that Adam hid in the Garden of Eden. Adam said, I heard you walking and I was naked, so I hid myself. God's like, who told you was naked? Right? First thing in the Bible that God said, who told you were naked? That was the first time that we were introduced to the hiding. Understand that that's what porn does to a man's spirit. It builds a hiding place. And the longer you hide, the further you feel from God. But you have to recognize that God never left. He never went anywhere. He's in the same position, whether you do the activity, whether you sin or you don't, right? And so a lot of men suffer from this and they think God is mad at them. They think they are disqualified from redemption. They think they're one of God's like defective products and God just tossed them away and said, I'm done with you. You want to keep doing this? I'm good. No, God tells us he will never leave us nor forsake us. And I used to feel like that. You know, I used to feel and think that like God no longer rock with me. You know what I'm saying? I was hiding too much. I thought I was one of God's unlucky soldiers. Like he just handed me a libido too big and temptation that was too strong and just told me good luck and let me cook and go figure it out. And I was failing every single time, okay? The actual truth is that God isn't just standing on his throne with his arms crossed, deciding if he's gonna let you in or not. He's in the highways, byways, bushes, and shrubs. And he's calling you out from your hiding, right? This is the same God that Paul prayed to and the same God who's been patient with you through every relapse you thought disqualified you. Understand that the shame is the hiding. The hiding is what cuts you off, not the act itself. It's the hiding. That's why I created Bring It to the Light. That's why I named my product Light Work, because we're no longer hiding, right? We're no longer living with the shame. We're no longer walking with the guilt. We're bringing it to the light. We're falling on the sword and we gonna beat this thing. Okay? Hey, anybody that's in this call, listen, join the cohort. We are going to beat this thing, okay? We are going to be delivered. All right, that's what it does to the spirit. There wasn't much there for me to write, but I can let go of this now as well. All right, let's keep it pushing because there's two more that we got to get through and we're almost at time. What it does to your relationships. Relationships. Okay, cool. Most people don't want to talk about this, y'all. I swear. All right, so everything that we talked about up until this section, your brain, your body, your spirit, that's all you, okay? You feel that. You're the one carrying it. You can almost categorize it as a private problem because it is. But when we're talking about relationships, this thing doesn't always stay private. And honestly, it can't. Because everything you do in private shapes who you are in public. What you're doing in the dark always comes to the light. And most of the time it doesn't come to the light when we would like it to, right? Every habit you build alone walks into every single room with you, whether you like it or not, okay? Let me get specific. Your woman, your lady, your wife, your girlfriend, your future wife, whoever. Porn is changing how you see her, even if you don't realize it. Think about this. You ever caught yourself comparing her to somebody you saw online? You ever felt like she's not enough or not in some specific way, but in this vague way, like you couldn't really articulate? You ever wish like she'd do something different or, you know, be something different, be more like, I don't know. Maybe you weren't sure exactly what, but you just knew she wasn't matching whatever standard had gotten lodged into your head. It's not her fault. That's not her. That's the wiring, right? That's the conditioning that you made from engaging in porn. Pornography doesn't just give you a sexual outlet, it installs a comparison engine in your brain that runs whether you're watching it or not. Every real woman in your life starts to lose. She can't compete with the infinite amount of partners that you've given yourself to virtually. Nobody can. Nobody can. And then comes the intimacy part. We talked about ED, but like, yo, being intimate is a whole different thing. Intimacy is being present. Intimacy is being undistracted. It's being engaged. It's being with her in your body and your mind at the same time. It's being able to be vulnerable and emotionally available. Porn weakens that. You've trained your brain that pleasure is something that you just consume. It's not something that you co-create anymore. You got to understand that real intimacy requires being with somebody, not just being with them, but being present with them, right? Porn has taught you that intimacy is something that you extract. That's not the case, right? So you might be married, you might be in a great relationship, and you're still checked out. Listen, your woman could feel it, dog. She can feel it, and she might not know why, but she knows that your mind is somewhere else. Bro, nothing in this world is stronger than a woman's intuition. And I'm talking from straight experience, okay? I've dealt with this while being in a relationship. It's not fair to her, right? And now, even if you don't have a partner yet, this still applies to you, because the man that you become alone is the man that you bring is the man that you bring into your future relationships, right? The programming that you're building now is the programming that you'll have when she shows up. No woman, no good woman for that matter, can compete with the version of you that's been training 15 years for something else. You've been stimulating yourself for 15 years, and then you want this woman to come in and try and, how the hell does that work, bro? Okay, that's from the ladies' perspective. Now there's friends, there's your brotherhood, there's your community, there's the men in your life. When you're carrying this thing in secret, you're cut off from real connection with other men, right? And I'll tell you why. Because you can't tell them what's actually going on, right? So you end up hanging out, you joke around, you talk about sports or work or whatever, and the whole time this thing is eating you alive, man. You can't even be vulnerable with the rallies. Eventually you start drifting from the men who could actually help you, because the price of staying close to them means being seen, means not hiding anymore, means being vulnerable and being open about what you're struggling with. And being seen feels worse than staying isolated, so you end up isolating, right? You stop hanging out with the homies, you make excuses, you tell your boys you're busy, you tell your boys like, I'm good, man, I just need some time, right? And so you start thinking that you're building these relationships over a phone, but like really the connection is gone. You know what I mean? And then you wonder why your friendships feel so shallow, man. I can't tell y'all how many times I have seen this with my clients, bro. They just feel alone. Like, I've seen this so many times, and they feel isolated because they've isolated themselves, right? Now, this is one of the ones that hit the hardest for me. And this is relationships with kids. Porn is shaping the father that you're going to be, or the father that you already are. Because what you tolerate in yourself, you'll tolerate in your house. How you do anything is how you do everything. The standard that you accept for your own integrity is the standard your sons will inherit, right? That hit different for me. I'm a new father. Like, I became a father about a month ago. When I started thinking about being a father, I was like, man, I'm so glad I overcame this, because that is an absolute fact. The idea that the thing that I was doing in secret would somehow show up in my kid's life gave me the chills. I'm like, yo, like, I can't do that, bro. I'm not trying to pass around that shame and that guilt. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to pass around not being able to be vulnerable about what I'm feeling. You know what I'm saying? I did not want my son to inherit his own hiding. I'm not even saying that it could be with porn. It could just be not with wanting to talk about anything that he's going through, right? So that's it for relationships, man. Like, I know that this video is probably a lot longer than I anticipated it to be, but I had to share that, bro. Like, this is real life shit we talking about. Excuse my French, bro. Subscribe if y'all want to, man. Y'all really don't have to, though. My sheep will hear my voice and I will know them. Last but not least, what it does to, we gotta leave with this, to your purpose. What pornography does to your purpose. Every man watching this has something inside him he was supposed to become, right? A vision that he had at some point, maybe when he was a kid, maybe when he was in his early 20s, early adult, maybe last week, who knows? A quick flicker of what he could be if he actually showed up and applied himself. For some of you, it may be a business you've been talking about starting for 3 years. For some of you, it may be a fit body that you've been trying to curate and have never had or trying to get back to. For some of you, it's relationship with God you keep promising to get serious about. For some of you, it's the kind of father you wanted to be based on the kind of father you didn't have. Who knows? Maybe it's a kind of husband you want to be, or a kind of leader at work or in your community. A kind of man or person that you wanted to be. Everybody has this vision. Whatever your vision is, porn has been eating at it. And let me explain to you what I mean by that. Time. How does it eat at your time? The average session with the lead up and the search and the come down and the recovery and the getting the nut off and the post nut clarity is 30 to 90 minutes. A few times a week. We're talking about hours every week, every month, every year going into this thing, right? Hours that were supposed to be going somewhere else, right? The book you could have written by now, the body you would have had built by now, the skill you would have learned and developed by now, the prayer that you didn't pray is gone by now. All of it gone because you decided to engage in this activity and it takes 30 to 60 minutes, okay? The next way that it's eating at it. Ambition, your drive, excuse my chicken scratch. Ambition, your hunger, your motivation. Porn flooded your system with the chemical you were supposed to use to chase real goals. That chemical is what we talked about earlier, dopamine. That's the chemical that gives you that energy, that you know what I mean? That fire. It's meant to power your pursuit of something, right? Something hard and worthwhile. Instead, it's getting spent on a screen. And also, if you're fapping and ejaculating, you're giving away your life force, dog. We do practice semen retention. So you wake up and you wonder why you don't feel like grinding today and why the dream you had last year feels boring now. You've just drained your life, all of your life force. You just spent all the fuel, all of it, okay? The last way that it affects your purpose is your attention. It's your attention. Where attention goes, energy flows. This is your focus. Okay, a lot of men I speak to, they always tell me about what their intention is. I intend to be a millionaire one day. I intend to break free from this. I intend to have a fit body, a strong mind. I intend to live a purposeful life. I'm gonna be honest with y'all, dog. It's not about where your intention is. It's about where your attention is, where your focus is, your ability to sit with something for longer than 5 minutes and actually do the work. Porn has trained you to consume in short, hyper-stimulated bursts, and then you try to go read a book or pray or meditate and you can't focus or sit still. You know, and a lot of y'all are blaming your ADHD, and maybe that's it. But maybe it's also that you trained your brain for the last decade or the last 15 years to expect dopamine to come fast instantly and expect to be stimulated by reading. Like, what are we talking about right now? If y'all add up these three over the course of years, that's years of stolen ambition, stolen attention, stolen time that you won't ever get back. That's the difference between the man that you are and the man that you are supposed to be. Understand that attention is an investment, and every time you engage in this blood-sucking activity, you accumulate dopamine debt that is way too expensive, right? It costs you your future. Our attention is our most important commodity. You cannot afford to pay attention to things that don't pay you. Stop paying for dopamine debt. Okay, this is the real cost of your purpose. I saved that for last because that is the most important piece. That's it. Okay, that's it. This is what pornography actually does to you. I'm sorry, I got a little hype there, okay? But this is actually what porn does to a man. Your brain rewired, your body drained, your spirit hiding, your relationships distorted, your purpose decaying. And I know that's a lot to sit with. And if you made it this far in this video, you're either nodding along or you're feeling something heavy in your chest right now. Maybe both. Either way, I appreciate you being here. And I'll leave y'all with this. Most men don't really realize the mental gymnastics going on in their mind behind the scenes when engaging in pornography. And I wanted to make this video to bring it to the light so that men can start doing the work. Okay, so I hope you found value in this video. That's it, man. Go be great. Master Clee out.